This happened last year during spring break. Me and two friends, Kayla and Sean, decided to road trip from North Carolina to Miami instead of flying. We were broke, trying to be spontaneous, and figured it'd be part of the adventure. It was about a 12-hour drive, and we planned to take turns and sleep in the car if needed. The first half of the trip was normal. Road snacks, Spotify playlists, dumb games like Would You Rather. Kayla sat in the front passenger seat. Sean was stretched out in the back with a hoodie over his face. Around 8:30 p.m., we were in rural Georgia, winding back roads with no streetlights. Just trees, gas stations with flickering signs, and long stretches of nothing. That's when we saw him. A guy walking along the side of the road. Backpack slung over one shoulder. Thumb out, he looked like he'd been walking a long time, clothes dusty. Sunburn on his neck and a limp in his step. We slowed down a little as we passed him. And Kayla said, "Should we stop? He looks rough." "I don't know," I said, picking up a stranger at night. Sean pulled down his hoodie and leaned forward between the seats. "Come on, it's spring break. Let's not be those people who ignore someone who needs help." I hesitated, I really did. But we pulled over. The guy jogged up to my window. "Appreciate it," he said, a little out of breath. "Just trying to get south, y'all headed that way?" "Yeah, Florida." "Perfect," he said, "name's Mason." He threw his bag in the back and climbed in beside Sean. The first few minutes were quiet. Mason just stared out the window, holding his bag on his lap like it was something fragile. I tried to make small talk, asking where he was from. He said up north. I asked where he was headed, and he said just warmer places. His voice was low, like someone who didn't talk much, no accent, no emotion. Kayla offered him a water bottle. He took it but didn't drink it. Sean tried to break the tension by showing him TikToks. Mason would glance at the phone. Not a little, but barely smiled. Something about him felt off. Like he wasn't dangerous exactly, just wrong. You know that feeling you get when you're around someone who isn't completely there? That was Mason. After about 30 minutes, Kayla fell asleep. Head against the window, Sean had his AirPods in. I was alone in the front, focusing on the road. That's when Mason leaned forward a little and said something I'll never forget. "You ever feel like something's watching you, even when you're alone?" I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Sometimes, I guess. He didn't laugh, didn't smile. Just kept staring at me through the mirror. "It's real," he said, "there's something out there. Follows me, doesn't talk, doesn't sleep, just watches." I forced a laugh. "You mean like a stalker?" "No," he said, "not a person, it wears faces. It waits and it gets closer every time I stop moving." I didn't respond. I honestly thought maybe he was high, or had some kind of breakdown. He sat back again and stared out the window like nothing happened. We stopped at a gas station around 10:30 p.m. Middle of nowhere, one pump, a single streetlight flickering above us. Kayla went inside for snacks. Sean stretched his legs. I started filling the tank. Mason got out and just stood there. Not walking, not helping, just standing behind the car, staring out at the trees. I asked if he needed anything. He said nothing. Then I swear on everything, he whispered something. Real soft, like he was talking to someone I couldn't see. I turned fast. "You say something." He looked at me and smiled, the first time I saw him smile, and said, "Just thinking out loud." I don't know why, but that smile chilled me more than anything he'd said so far. Back in the car, the vibe was completely different. Nobody talked, nobody laughed. Kayla had her arms crossed. Sean had stopped trying to be friendly. A voice, but not one that belonged to a person. It came from the hallway, low and rattling, like wind moving through a throat full of sand. "Give him back." Sean shouted nope and threw the cross like a spear down the hallway. It hit something hard and there was a sound like bones snapping. Then silence again. We waited 5 seconds, 10. Mason suddenly said, "Now." He bolted out of the room. We followed him, sprinting down the dark hallway toward the front door, not even daring to look around. Behind us, something started running, fast. Not footsteps, pounding like hooves. We didn't stop. Mason reached the door first, threw it open, and that's when we saw the car was gone. Just an empty gravel lot under the moonlight. Sean screamed, "Where's the car?" We didn't wait to figure it out. We took off into the woods behind the church. Tree branches whipped our faces. The ground was soaked from recent rain, and every few steps one of us slipped. That thing kept coming. We didn't look back, not until we saw a light in the distance, a gas station sign glowing faintly through the trees. We made it to the parking lot, practically collapsed in front of the door. The clerk behind the counter just stared as we burst in, gasping and muddy. Mason slammed the door shut and leaned against it. I turned around, and for the first time in the entire nightmare, there was nothing behind us. No creature, no headlights, nothing. It was gone. We called the cops. Didn't tell them everything, just said someone was following us. Tried to break into the church. They sent a local deputy, who took our statements but clearly didn't believe a word. He offered to drive Mason to the next town over. Mason refused. "Not going anywhere near that road again," he said. We got a hotel nearby, all of us in one room. Nobody slept. Sometime around 3 a.m., Mason asked if he could show me something. He pulled a small cloth pouch from his duffel bag. Inside were more of those strange paper symbols. Some had red smudges on the corners. Like dried blood, others looked burned or torn. He laid them out on the bed in a weird pattern, then pointed to the center. "This is the hole," he said, "the space it comes from." Kayla sat up. "You mean like hell?" He shrugged. "Not heaven, that's all I know." Sean was pacing. "You're not normal. You know that, right? You don't talk like a regular person. You act like this happens all the time." Mason looked at him calmly. "It does. And it'll follow you now too." Sean stopped walking. "What?" "It marks people who see it," Mason said. "It doesn't always take them right away. Sometimes it waits weeks, months. But once it sees you, it remembers." Kayla covered her mouth. No, this was your curse, not ours." "I didn't choose it," Mason said softly. "I've just learned to survive it." Sean snapped. "You need to get the hell out of here." Mason didn't argue. He quietly picked up his symbols, tucked them back in the pouch, and said, "You should drive in the morning. Go as far south as you can. Don't stop on back roads. Don't pick up anyone. Don't talk to anyone who shows up alone." And with that, he left the room. We watched him walk off down the sidewalk into the night with nothing but his bag. And we never saw him again. We made it to Miami the next afternoon. Didn't talk about it, didn't tell anyone. Not even our families. What were we supposed to say? The trip felt cursed from then on. Parties didn't feel fun, beaches didn't feel relaxing. Every night I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, waiting for something to whisper from the shadows. Sean left 2 days early, booked a solo flight back home. Kayla started sleeping with her lights on, even during the day. And me, I still have that paper Mason gave me. It's in my nightstand drawer in a little plastic bag. I haven't opened it since. But sometimes late at night, when the wind's just right and the world goes quiet, I swear I hear it. The car engine, purring in the distance, no headlights, no driver. Just waiting outside, ready to pick someone else up. This happened to me and my cousin Alyssa during spring break last year. We went to Panama City Beach, super touristy. Packed with college kids. You've seen the Instagram reels, beach parties. Neon lights, frozen drinks the size of your head. It was supposed to be a fun distraction from school and stress and everything else going wrong in life. But we found something on the beach that changed everything. A phone, half buried in the sand, screen down, right near the edge of the shore. We found it on the 3rd night of our trip. We were walking back to our motel from a late bonfire party. It was around 1:30 a.m. The beach was mostly empty, just a few drunk couples stumbling around. Some guys playing music off a speaker, and us. Alyssa was the one who spotted it. "Hey, is that a phone?" It was lodged in the sand like someone had dropped it mid-stride. No case, no charger, no wallet attached, just the phone. Black, cracked on one corner. I picked it up, it was warm. That struck me as weird because the air was cool that night. I wiped the screen on my hoodie. It flickered on no passcode. No lock screen, just the camera app, open and recording. The timer showed 6 hours, 28 minutes and 14 seconds and counting. It had been recording for over 6 hours. We both looked at each other. I tapped the screen to stop the video. My hands were a little shaky. Alyssa leaned in. "You think someone lost it during the day?" she asked. "For 6 hours and just buries it." She shrugged, checked the gallery. The phone was almost empty, no texts, no call history, no apps downloaded. Just a gallery with 2 videos. The one we just stopped and another dated the day before. We opened the older one first. It was filmed from the same angle, the beach at night. Camera low, buried in the sand. The screen was dark for most of it. Just soft wind and wave sounds. Then about 15 minutes in, someone walked into the frame. Bare feet, pale, limping slightly. The figure walked slowly across the frame. Stopped a few feet away and turned toward the camera, but didn't look at it. It just stood there, motionless, like it was listening. Then it collapsed straight down, like someone had cut its strings. No sound, no scream, just down. A few seconds later, the video ended. Alyssa covered her mouth with the actual. I backed out of the gallery. We should turn this in. To who? The cops. I don't know, hotel security. She didn't look convinced. We kept walking faster now until we got back to the motel. Our room was on the 2nd floor, facing the ocean. As soon as we locked the door, I plugged the phone into my charger and it worked. Started charging immediately. I opened the second, longer video. The one that had been recording when we found it. The first 4 hours were boring sand. Waves, occasional footsteps nearby. It must have been recording all day. Then something changed around the 4:28 mark. The audio picked up a voice. Whispering. We turned the volume all the way up and sat close to the screen. It was faint, garbled, like someone whispering in a language I didn't understand. But it had a pattern, it wasn't random. Then around 5 hours, 6 minutes and 22 seconds, a shadow passed over the lens. Not a person, not an animal. It looked like someone crawling. Low to the ground. Backwards. We both screamed and dropped the phone. The video kept playing. I picked it back up and tapped fast forward. Around 5:47, a figure stood over the camera again. Just legs this time, dirty, wet, trembling. Then the figure dropped to its knees slowly and dug something into the sand. We couldn't see what it was. And then it lined in toward the camera. Its face never fully entered the frame. Just the mouth wide, stretched and leaking something black. And just before the video cut off, it whispered, "You found it." We unplugged the phone and threw it into a drawer. Locked it in. Didn't sleep that night. We kept the lights on. Alyssa sat with her back against the wall. And I stayed up on my phone trying to find any news or posts about lost phones on the beach. Nothing. No missing person reports, no Amber alerts, no social media mentions. The next morning we walked to the front desk and asked if anyone had reported a lost phone. The guy barely looked up from his computer. "Now you can turn it in though." We did. He tossed it in a drawer like it was just another charger someone left behind. That night things got worse. We came back from dinner and the drawer in our room was open. And the phone was back, sitting on the bed, screen on, recording again. We both froze. The phone was sitting right in the center of the bed. Facing the room, camera still rolling. I walked over slowly and picked it up. Timer read 0 hours, 15 minutes and 3 seconds. It had started recording exactly 15 minutes before we walked in. While the door was locked, while no one was inside. Alyssa whispered, "How the hell did it get back here?" I gave it to the front desk, I said. "He locked it away." "Then either he's screwing with us." She didn't finish the sentence. We stared at the screen. The live feed showed our room, empty except for the 2 of us standing at the edge of the bed. I hit stop, then checked the gallery. The new recording was the only thing saved, everything else was gone. The older videos. Deleted. I went into the trash folder. Empty. Alyssa's voice shook, something's wiping it on its own. I nodded, or someone's watching us through it. We packed up and left the motel that night. Didn't even check out, just tossed our stuff in the car and drove to another hotel on the other end of town. A big corporate one with cameras, security, people around. The new room felt safer, brighter. Cleaner, less like a horror movie set. Still, we kept the phone with us. Part of me wanted to smash it, but something said don't, like if we destroyed it. It would somehow make things worse. We set it on the desk, screen down. Didn't touch it the rest of the night. At around 2:41 a.m., I woke up to the sound of water dripping. Not the faucet, not the sink. The ceiling, right above the desk where the phone was. I sat up. Alyssa was already awake, sitting upright in bed, staring at the wall. I whispered, "You hear that?" She nodded without looking at me. "It's in the phone," she said. I heard it whisper again. I got up and walked toward the desk. The phone screen was on, not recording, just glowing. And there was a new video in the gallery. Timestamp 1:39 a.m. Duration 0:37. I tapped it open. The camera was filming the inside of our room again, this exact room. Same beds, same desk, but we weren't in it. Instead, a figure stood between the beds. Faceless, drenched. It stood there twitching like it was glitching in place. Then it walked over to my bed and leaned down, face inches from where my head would have been. Then the screen went black. I nearly dropped the phone. "Wake up," I said. "We're leaving again." "Where do we even go?" Alyssa asked, already pulling on her hoodie. "I don't care, somewhere with people, bright lights, cameras." We grabbed our stuff, phone still in my hand, and bolted for the car. The front desk guy barely glanced at us as we passed. We parked at a 24-hour diner, sat in a booth. Ordered coffee we didn't touch. Just sat there watching the phone sit on the table between us like a loaded weapon. Eventually Alyssa asked, "Why us?" "I don't know. What if it was waiting in the sand for someone to pick it up, like a trap?" I think that's exactly what it was. We stayed there until sunrise. Then we drove back to the beach. There was barely anyone out yet. The waves were calm, like nothing bad had ever happened there. I carried the phone to the exact spot we found it. Alyssa brought a small plastic shovel we'd bought at a gas station. We dug deep, maybe 4 feet, and tossed the phone in. Then buried it. Stomped the sand flat, walked away. Didn't look back. But that wasn't the end. Because the next night I got a text. Not on my phone, on Alyssa's. It was from a random number, no contact name. Just one sentence. "You left it unlocked." Then a photo of me, lying in bed, in my apartment, taken from above, like someone or something had been standing over me while I slept. We don't talk about it much anymore. We moved out of our apartments, deleted all social media, and don't answer unknown numbers. But sometimes, usually around 2 or 3 a.m., I wake up to find my phone light on. Camera open. Recording. Every time I check the footage, the room looks normal. Until the very last frame. That's when I see it. Standing in the corner. Watching. Waiting. Smiling. Lex and Daniel went on a spring break trip to the Outer Banks. It was one of those spontaneous decisions that sounded fun at the time. And after we pooled our money together, we booked a pretty decent Airbnb right near the beach. It was a 2-story house with a wraparound porch. Slightly worn down but cozy and surprisingly cheap. The listing had good reviews, and the owner was quick to respond. The only thing that felt a little off was how strict the instructions were: no parties. No loud music, no going into the locked room downstairs. Yes, that was actually in the house rules. Basement is off limits. Please do not attempt to open the door or tamper with the lock. Violations will result in fines and removal. Naturally, that made all of us more curious. Lex was the first one to joke about it. Bet that's where they keep the bodies, she said as we dropped our bags off in the living room. The place wasn't bad inside, older furniture. Coastal decor, some creaky floorboards, but it had a weird stillness. Like no one had stayed there in a long time. And that basement door, it was in the hallway right off the kitchen. Big, old, and reinforced with a thick chain looped through the handle and bolted into the wall. We didn't mess with it the first couple nights. We were too busy going out, drinking on the beach, and trying to forget how much student debt we were all in. But on the third night, something changed. We had just come back from a bonfire party on the beach. It was around 2 a.m. Olivia was already asleep upstairs, and Daniel passed out on the couch. I was brushing my teeth when I heard Lex calling me. "Hey, come here, listen." She was standing in the hallway outside the kitchen, barefoot, staring at the basement door. I walked over, half expecting her to be messing around, but then I heard it too. Thump, scrape. It sounded like something heavy being dragged across the floor below us. We just stood there for a second, listening. It happened again. Thump, scrape, shuffle, then silence. Lex looked at me. "There's someone down there." I shook my head. Could be a rat or the pipes. She gave me a look. Pipes don't drag. We stared at that chained up door for a few more seconds, then went upstairs without another word. But neither of us really slept that night. The next day we asked Daniel if he heard anything. He just shrugged and said we were probably still drunk. But Olivia, who had gone to bed early, admitted something weird. "I thought I heard whispering around. Like 4 in the morning," she said. "I assumed it was you two talking." We hadn't been talking, we'd both been in our rooms, lying wide awake, listening to the silence. Later that night, after we played cards and everyone went to bed, I stayed up scrolling TikTok in the living room. It was almost 3 a.m. when I heard it again. This time, the sound wasn't coming from the basement. It was coming from inside the vents, a low, scratching sound like fingernails on metal. I muted my phone and held my breath. The scratching continued for maybe 30 seconds, then it stopped. That's when I noticed the faint smell, something metallic and sour. Like rust and wet dog, I got up, walked into the kitchen and flipped the light on. The smell got stronger near the basement door. I leaned in, pressed my ear against it, and immediately jumped back. Something banged against the other side. Not like a knock, like a body slamming into it. That was it for me. I woke everyone up. Olivia was freaked out. Daniel still thought it was a prank. Lex grabbed a flashlight and said, "Let's just check it out." "Lex, it's chained," I said. "You'd have to cut it off." She looked at me and said, "So let's cut it." She was dead serious. We argued about it for a while, but she was already in that reckless mode where no one could stop her. She drove to the 24-hour gas station and came back with bolt cutters. "I'm not gonna open it all the way," she said, "just peek." Lex wedged the cutters into the chain and, after a few hard squeezes, snapped one of the links. The chain fell loose. Daniel helped her unwind it. The rest of us stayed back. Lex slowly turned the knob and pulled the door open just a crack. I wish she hadn't. The smell hit us first, something rotting. Lex clicked on her flashlight and aimed it into the darkness. The staircase was steep and unfinished. The air was heavy and damp at the bottom. We could make out the cement floor, dust, and... "What is that?" Olivia whispered. There was a mattress in the corner, old, stained, surrounded by half-burnt candles. Something was lying on it. Lex started to step down. "Lex, no," I said, grabbing her arm. "We need to call the police." But it was too late. A noise erupted from the bottom of the stairs, a wet, choking sound, like someone trying to breathe through a blocked throat. Then something moved on the mattress. Lex screamed and slammed the door shut. Daniel quickly rewrapped the chain and looped it, even though it wasn't secure anymore. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. We waited until the sun came up before doing anything. Nobody said much over breakfast. Daniel just stared at the table, and Olivia looked like she was about to cry the whole time. Lex was pacing back and forth with her arms crossed. mumbling there was something down there, someone that was a person. But that didn't feel like a person. I called the local police just after 7 a.m., told them we heard sounds from the basement and saw what looked like someone being held down there. I didn't mention the bolt cutters or the fact that we broke the lock. I just said the door was already open. 2 officers showed up an hour later. One older guy with a tired voice and a younger female officer who looked barely older than us. We let them inside and showed them the basement. They went down together while we all stood at the top of the stairs. A few minutes later, the younger officer came back up. Her face was pale. The older one followed. "No one's down there now," he said. Lex looked at him. "What do you mean now?" He shrugged. "No signs of anyone living in it recently. A couple candles, old mattress. Some junk, could have been squatters at some point, but it's empty." "That's not possible," I said. "We saw something on the mattress." "I believe you heard something," he said calmly. "Animals get in through the crawl spaces sometimes. Possums, raccoons, they'll make a hell of a racket and they stink." "You think we imagined it?" Olivia asked. He looked at her and said nothing. The younger officer kept her eyes on the floor. Before they left, the older cop asked us for the name of the Airbnb host. I gave him the profile name and phone number. He jotted it down and said they'd follow up. They never came back. And the Airbnb host never replied again. That night, we tried to convince ourselves it was over. That maybe the cops were right. Maybe it was an animal. Maybe the mattress was just left there from before. But the chain was still broken and none of us felt safe. Around 11 p.m., Daniel said he was going to smoke out on the porch. He stepped outside with his hoodie and vape. We figured he just needed space. About 10 minutes later, I went out to check on him. He was gone. I called his name, walked down the steps. Nothing but wind and the sound of waves in the distance. I turned to go back inside when I saw something weird on the side of the house. A trail of wet footprints, bare feet, leading around to the back. I followed them cautiously, heart pounding, and turned the corner. There he was. Daniel was standing at the back of the house, facing the wall, completely still. "Dude," I called, "what the hell are you doing?" He didn't respond. I got closer and realized he was muttering something. I reached out and grabbed his arm. He jerked back like I burned him, whipped around and stared at me, his eyes wide and red, like he hadn't blinked in minutes. "What?" he hissed. "You all right?" I asked. He didn't say anything, just turned and walked past me, back toward the front. We didn't talk about it after, but something was wrong with him. That night was the worst. We all tried to sleep in the living room, thinking it'd make us feel safer. Olivia was curled up in a blanket. Lex had a kitchen knife under her pillow, and I laid on the floor with my phone in hand. Camera open, flashlight ready. Around 2:30 a.m., the basement door creaked open. None of us had touched it, none of us had even gone near it. Lex sat up instantly. "Did you lock it again?" she whispered. "No," I said, "it doesn't lock anymore." The door creaked wider. Something stepped out. Just a silhouette at first, tall, slender, twitching. Its arms were long, too long. Its head was tilted like it couldn't hold the weight of its skull. And it was soaked, dripping water onto the hardwood floor. Olivia screamed. The thing turned toward us, and even though it had no visible eyes, we knew it saw us. It didn't move fast. It didn't have to. It just started walking slow. Wet, uneven steps, like it was relearning how to walk. Lex stood up and screamed at it to stop. She raised the knife, but the thing didn't care. It kept coming. Daniel stood up slowly. Then he walked toward it. We shouted at him to stop, but he didn't even look at us. He walked right up to the figure, chest to chest, and said something we couldn't hear. The thing touched his face with one of its long fingers. And then they both turned and went back down the stairs. The door slammed shut behind them. We left that night. Didn't even grab our bags, just ran barefoot to the car. Started the engine and drove until we found a 24-hour diner where we stayed until sunrise. We tried calling Daniel's phone, it was dead. We tried texting the Airbnb host again, no reply. We eventually filed a missing person report. The police investigated, but claimed there was no evidence he was ever there, no record of his name on the Airbnb listing. Nothing on the security cameras from the neighboring houses. Not even his footprints around the porch. It was like he'd never existed. But he did. He was our friend. We saw what took him. And every now and then I dream about that basement. About the thing that touched his face. Sometimes I still hear his voice in the middle of the night, whispering from the vent behind my bed. It's not so bad down here.